Sound check testing 1 2 1 2. Sound check testing 1 2 1 2. Live.
We only have this or dinosaur matches.
We are live. Are we live everywhere? Live over here. Live over here. Why is this coming up on my screen? All right, let me turn the sound off over here. We are good here. We are good there. We are good here. Yes, we are good here. Yes, we are good here. Yes. All right, so let's get to it. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great start to your day. Let me just get my pinned comments in place on all my apps. By the way, when y'all watching these lives, I'm live in I'm on 7 different platforms right now. So shout out to the Wi-Fi. Shout out to the Wi-Fi working to make sure all these platforms are streaming to all these, make sure all the stream is going to all these platforms at the same time. I told you we were going to get into this topic here today. So let me give you all a couple baseline ground rules that I had to give you up front before we get into this subject, because the rules are different for different apps. So the app, when I do these live streams, right now I'm streaming on YouTube 1, Rumble 2, X 3, Facebook 4, LinkedIn 5, Instagram 6, and TikTok 7. So I'm streaming in 7 different platforms right now. Now, one of these platforms that starts with the letter T, I cannot say the name of this person who we're going to discuss here today. And his name also starts with the letter T. And that's as far as all the other platforms I could say this person's name. At least I think I can, until they tell me that I can't. So I'm not actually going to say this person's name at all during this stream here today, even though some of you, depending on which app you're watching on, the name is right there in the title. But on this app over here, the name is not in the title. If you heard my stream yesterday, you know who I'm talking about. If you don't know who I'm talking about, any of you who's watching the stream over on this app right here, please put this person's name in the comment. You can put their name in the comment. I can't say the name, but put their name in the comment so everybody knows who we're talking about over here on TikTok. And TikTok is the reason why I am making this adjustment based on TikTok, because when I do these live streams, I tend to have a bigger audience on. Put the whole name, the full Nikki. You got half. Give me the whole name. You can say the whole name. Y'all can say it. I can't say it. So TikTok, I have the biggest audience when I do my live streams, so I am making an adjustment just for them. And that's the reason why I'm not saying this name. I don't have a problem saying people's names. I don't have a problem talking about anything. I think all of you pretty much understand that if you watch any of my material. But I know I have been told directly by this app that saying this name is a no-no. So now that y'all understand that, what we're going to do is get into this topic here today. I told you I was going to talk about this. This is not even necessary. It is kind of a current event, but there's nothing, I don't think, last I checked, nothing directly happening at the moment. But as I mentioned, I alluded to this person a few times in the past when I've done my lives, and people were asking me what I thought about it, what they wanted to hear, what I had to say about it. I actually talked about this maybe about a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years ago, when this person's name started to blow up. And maybe some of you didn't hear that because I said it on my podcast. I have a show that comes out every day. It's called Work on Your Game. You can find it on your favorite podcasting apps, such as Apple, Spotify, etc. I did that a couple of years ago. So some of you didn't know about that. Some of you didn't hear it. Some of you only hear me when I do these. So I figured, all right, let's just pull it out and let's talk about it right here. And that's what we're going to do here today. Of course, I'll take your questions and comments as well. I'll take them at the end. So if you have a question or comment and you post it while I am speaking, I will address them when I'm done. Okay, everybody heard that? So don't get impatient or mad if I'm not addressing your question or comment. So let's get into this here. And you also got to remember that over on this app right here that I'm looking at the camera right now, there's certain things you just can't say on this app. And I have been warned, I've been suspended, I've been kicked off a couple of times for saying certain things that I didn't know I couldn't say until I found out that I couldn't say them. So any of you wonder why I'm kind of talking around certain things, that's why I'm doing it here today. But generally, any of you who knows me or knows my work I don't need to talk around anything unless I'm on somebody else's platform and they make the rules. So everybody got that. So let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do over here is we extract all the tools to help athletes get to the top of the sports game, and we have translated them through our system to the business and the professional world. So if you are a salesperson, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business professional who wants to perform at a higher level, you want to make more money in your business, you want to be more disciplined, more confident, or anything that goes along the lines of any of those things that I just said, then our program can help you. And our program, you can find out more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com, or just click the link in my bio on whatever platform you are following me on or watching me on right now. So now let's get into talking about this unnamed person who I'm not going to say, who has a shaved head, who is, I believe, mixed race and used to be a kickboxer and got kicked off all the social media platforms. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Okay. I can't say the person's name, as I just said. Can't say their name on one of these apps, or probably a few of them. But this person, I think we can agree, this person is, we can generally call this person an influencer. All right. We can say that, I will say is a man. Okay. And we can say this person is an influencer, and they came to prominence. Yes, that person, Tay Gunner, you got it right. This person came to prominence and recognition over, let's see, I'm recording this right now, is late 2024. So I think the first time I heard of this guy, I'm just talking about me. I know he's been around for a long time, but first time I heard of him, because I do not follow the boxing world or combat fighting world that closely. Kickboxing, boxing, MMA, I don't really follow that stuff. So I did not know about this guy when he was fighting whoever he was fighting his professional career. Didn't really know about him and a lot of the content he was putting out. And this is how it works with a lot of content creators. I'm a content creator myself. So I've been creating content since 2005. Most of you were not following me in 2005 because I was talking about completely different things than what I talk about now. Many of you only found out about me within the last 2 years or so. And it's similar with him. He was out there putting out content for a long time. Most people didn't know him. He had a niche audience. Then all of a sudden his stuff started blowing up and a bunch of people came to find out about him. I would see his name every now and then on social media, but I never paid attention because what I heard, or at least the things that I saw that people were alluding to, because the first time I really heard about him was probably about late 2022, maybe mid to late 2022. And what people were saying was, oh, well, this guy, they would say his name, this guy, well, he's just talking about what they say he was talking about relationships and dating and girls and how to meet more girls and get more girls, et cetera, et cetera. And I am not really interested in that type of content. I've never really looked on the internet for content on how to get girls and meet girls, et cetera, et cetera. I is just not interested in that kind of content. If I'm looking at content on the internet, usually it's business related, marketing, sales, mindsets, personal growth, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I pay attention to, or like news, current events type stuff. But I've never been a person consuming, here's how to talk to girls, et cetera, from the internet. But I heard that he was gaining a lot of momentum from talking about this stuff. And I said, oh, that's what he's talking about. And no, I'm not interested. So I never paid any attention, but I had heard the name, but I never even looked at, didn't even know what to do, like, honestly. So when his name got more significant, again, what I noticed, so the thing that got me interested, what really actually caught my attention, was in around late 2022, when this person got charged with some crimes. He got charged with crimes that people were saying generally that it was trafficking of humans and some forms of abuse when it came to men dealing with women with the letter S. So I got to be careful what phrases I say on certain apps. So he got accused with this and taken into custody and got some material possessions seized, money taken away, and he was put into custody, and they hadn't even really formally come up with what the crime was. So it was a big story because this person got incarcerated. This person has a brother, a sibling, and they both got incarcerated, even though the sibling, I don't know what the sibling was charged with. I don't know anything. But anyway, they got incarcerated. That's when it got my attention. Because, all right, it's one thing, this guy is talking about getting girls and stuff like that, and people like it or they don't like it. Any man who comes out on the internet starts talking about how to date and get girls, you're going to divide the audience, because you're going to get a bunch of people who agree with how you're talking about it and a bunch of people who disagree with how you're talking about it. So if you're talking about how to get girls off the internet and just date them and have your fun with them and send them back home for the weekend, A bunch of people not going to like that. If you talk about how to get girls and get a wife and have a happy family and live happily ever after, a bunch of people are not going to like that. So it's a great subject. Any of you who wanted to draw an audience on the internet, start talking about dating, because you're going to divide the audience. Or you can talk about politics, or you can talk about any kind of social issue in which people are divided, because people will listen either because they love it or they hate it. So any of you just looking for a tip on which direction to go with content, he had a good idea. Talk about dating and sex. And of course, it's going to get a bunch of attention because, again, half the people like it, half the people don't like it. I didn't give a damn because that's not what I'm interested in. However, when he got incarcerated, that's when he got my attention. I said, all right, the only thing I know about this guy is all he's talking about is girls and dating. Everybody talks about girls and dating. Why is he getting incarcerated? That didn't quite add up to me. That made me think something doesn't smell right here. All right, that's all he's known for, and that's all he's doing. He got incarcerated for that. And at the same time, I don't know which one happened first. Some of you can probably tell me. I don't know which one happened first, but then he got kicked off all the social media platforms. That's when I really got interested. That's when I said, all right, let me find out more about this guy. Is when he got incarcerated, I said, okay, well, somebody can, and we talked about this extensively here on these lives for the last month or two. Just because someone sues you does not mean you are guilty of anything, and it does not prove anything. And even if, and that's on the civil side, because a person can just sue another person. I can sue you. Doesn't mean you did anything. Doesn't mean anything happened to me. But even in the criminal side, if the government, whether that's the state government, federal government, or whatever country's government, puts a charge on you or incarcerates you for whatever reason, or just arrests you, does not mean that you committed a crime. It means that they might think you committed a crime, but it doesn't mean that you actually did commit a crime. However, they can have a charge. If somebody calls and says, well, this person did this. If somebody calls right now and says, hey, I was walking down the street this morning and Baldwin punched me in the face and just kept going, then the cops might come knock on my door and ask me some questions. So just because I'm engaging with the authorities does not necessarily mean I did anything wrong, because that might not even happen. It might be lying. So anyway, that didn't get my attention that he got incarcerated. But when he got kicked off all the social media platforms, I said, wait a minute, now, all right, something's up, because there's a bunch of people who talk about things on social media you would consider controversial, a bunch of people who you consider maybe divisive, a bunch of people you may consider to be trolls, a bunch of people who you love their stuff because you know a lot of people don't like it, and a bunch of people who you hate their stuff because you know a lot of people do like it. And they're on both sides on every subject. There are people who talk crazy about politics, about dating, about relationships, about money, about success, about anything, about girls, about guys. So why is this guy getting kicked off all the social media platforms? Nobody else got kicked off all the social media except Donald Trump. Only person I saw get kicked off all social media at the same time in a coordinated process was Donald Trump. This guy ain't Donald Trump. All right, he used to be a combat fighter, and he's a relatively young guy talking about girls. All right, what is this? That's what got my radars up. And I said, let me go find out about this dude. That's when I started finding out what's actually going on. All right. So now that we have laid that baseline, let's start right here. First things first. All right. He without sin shall cast the first stone. All right. I'm paraphrasing straight out the Bible. I've had many people come to me after because I wrote an article. What happened is I wrote an article about this guy. Once I kind of learned more about him, I put this out to my email list probably again about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. After I wrote that article, I got a bunch of responses, many of them from young males, believe it or not, who are not young males, but males, period. Let's say under 40 males. And that's young. And they would say, well, hey, you shouldn't support this guy and you shouldn't say anything positive about this guy because of these charges that are against this guy. That was basically the basis upon which people were telling me. They were trying to advise me to not say anything positive about this guy because he had charges against him. Now, we know how that ended up. The charges are completely disappeared. There's nothing there. And this guy did not get incarcerated. He never even went to trial, was not convicted of a crime. We all know that that's how it ended up. But these guys were reaching out to me back when the charges were still active, saying that, hey, don't support him because he has these charges. So we know they ended up being wrong. But it was obvious that they were wrong from the beginning, because I could just look at the situation and say, this just doesn't smell right. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the world, and I understand when a woman does it because women are wired differently than men. But when I see men doing this is a reflection of what I call the feminization of society. I'll probably do a whole live on that. If y'all want me to talk about that, y'all can let me know. But I'll probably do a whole live on that at some point in the future about this feminization of society. And when I say feminization, I'm not demeaning females. I'm not even talking about women. When I say the feminization of society, what I'm talking about is men starting to behave like women. And one of the ways that men have started to behave like women is when they see that some man he gets in some type of hot water. Let's say he has a criminal charge or a civil charge against him. And then the men say, well, you can't support that guy or say anything positive about that guy because look at all these negative things being said about him. That must mean there's something wrong with him. All right, it's feminine behavior. For lack of a better term, before I start using more colorful language, which I might get to later on here today. And I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of men who behave like women or men who think like women or men who express themselves as if their brains are wired like a female. And when these men were coming to me saying these things, it really was making me, generally, not any one message, but just the general concept was making me annoyed. Like, dude, do you understand just because someone has a charge or because people are saying negative things about a person does not necessarily mean that they did anything wrong, nor does it prove anything. And again, in the United States and in many other countries, the law is you're innocent until they prove that you're guilty. You got to be proven guilty. The charge doesn't mean anything. And this is the same thing I applied to him, even though I didn't really know that much about the guy. And again, as we see how that ended up. So let's continue here. So even if this person were to be found guilty, let's say you get charged with something, you get found guilty. Even if you get found guilty, again, civil court, criminal court, whatever, or one or the other, think somebody like O.J. Simpson. Even if someone's found guilty, let me ask the question of any of you who's listening to this, who would you be to judge that person? Even if they got found guilty, who are you to judge them? That's why I said what I said. He without sin shall cast the first stone. So if someone goes to court and they get found guilty of a crime or they get found guilty civilly, I would say, okay, well, now we know this person got found guilty. Now we know this person got found liable. I'm still not in a position to judge that person and say anything about their character or who they are as an individual. I can say that, yes, they got found guilty. I can say, yes, they got 10 years incarceration, but I can't judge their character because who am I to judge anybody's character? And it's the same thing I'm asking you. Who are you to judge another person's character? And this was a lot of the messages I was getting from males, which, again, disturbed me. It'd be one thing if I was getting it from women. I would kind of understand. But getting it from men disturbed me because a lot of men were saying to me, well, this guy's a bad guy. Dre, you shouldn't align your brand. I like your stuff, Dre, but you shouldn't say anything positive about this guy because he's a bad guy. Dre, you're a good guy. He's a bad guy. And I would reply to some of these men with the same thing I would say to some of you, like, you don't even fucking know me. All you know about me is what you watch here on these live streams. You don't know anything about what I'm doing when this camera's not on. You have no idea what I'm doing. I might be committing crimes all day, every day. All you know is about this hour or so that you spend here on this live stream with me. You don't know if I'm a good guy. You don't know anything about my character or my morality or anything. The same way, you don't know anything about that guy whose name I'm not saying here today. You have no idea about his morality, character, what type of person he really is, because all you know about him is what you've seen, heard, or read on the internet. You cannot judge a person's character through the fucking internet. And I'm saying this to help you all understand. This applies both in a positive and a negative. Meaning, a person who you do not know in person, even if you are a fan, you don't know if they're a good person. You don't know their moral qualities. You don't know their personal character. You don't know anything. All you know is their personality and what they show you when the camera's on. You know nothing else about this individual, and you are unqualified to make a character judgment on a person positively or negatively unless you have spent time with them in real life, in the flesh, in person, with no cameras on. If you haven't done that, you don't know anything about a person. And therefore, you should not be passing judgment in any direction. Okay, so I'm talking to everybody who's listening to this right now. And it's important that you understand that this applies both for people who you like and the people who you dislike, the people who you are a fan of and the people who you are not a fan of. So on these live streams, you hear me talk about current events all the time. And I say positive things about certain people. I say negative things. I criticize certain people, but I talk about their actions. And I give you my theories on why I think they're doing what they're doing. And I will question or challenge the things that they have said and the things that we know that they have done. But at the same time, I can't question anybody's personal character. I can't do that. Even if I really dislike a person or dislike what I've seen about a person, I can't say anything about who they are as an individual because I don't know. Again, be careful of what you see on the internet. As the saying goes from back in the day, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Well, when it comes to the internet, we got to cut that in half again. So you should believe like a quarter of what you see, and you should doubly not believe anything that you hear, especially when it comes to the internet, because it's easy to lie to people through the internet. Any of you who's ever seen somebody online and they were a certain way, then you see them in person and you see something completely different, that should be a validation of that point to you. So anyone who speaks on a public figure, again, when they have some dirt on them, there's some type of public news, you're still not qualified to judge that person unless we're going to put the negative things that are known about you out in public as well and allow you to be judged. I remember I heard Nicki Minaj say this, the rapper Nicki Minaj. She was doing an interview somewhere, and I forget what show she was on. And it might have been the Joe Budden podcast years ago. And she was saying that when she got known, she would talk to people who also wanted to be known like her. When she became famous, she was like, you know, now that I'm famous, I get a lot of women, and I think she used a different word. She would get a lot of females who will come up to her and say, Nicki, I want to get known. I want to get my name out there too. And Nicki Minaj said, and there's a very good point that she made. She said, if most of these people got the kind of attention that I was getting on the internet every day, and you spent one day looking at it and consuming the stuff that people say to me and about me, you'd be ready to unalive yourself. You'd be ready to take yourself off the planet if you saw the stuff that people said to me and about me every single day. Most people could not deal with that type of feedback. Again, some of it's positive, but a lot of it can be negative. Many people are not ready to deal with that. Now, we're going to come back to this point later on. Let's move on. So when it comes to this unnamed influencer whose name I'm not saying here today, y'all know who I'm talking about, right? And anybody over on TikTok can just put his full name in the comments. So anybody who's unsure who I'm talking about, y'all know who I'm referring to. Everybody else, his name is in the title. Yes. What's going on, Brittany? Good morning. Here's what I like about this guy, because I've listened to a good amount of his material. I've listened to a good amount of his stuff. I am on his email list, so I get his emails. Usually comes out about every day. And here's what I like about this guy, that his focus is, at least the stuff that I see, is on mindset, mental toughness, and his view on masculinity. Now, we know this concept, masculinity, is a very relative subject. So what I say masculinity is, somebody else, a man might say, well, no, it's not that, it's this. And somebody else may say it's this. And somebody else may say it's this. If you ask 10 different people, what does masculinity mean? You're going to get 10 different answers. All right. So I'm not here to debate what is masculinity factually, et cetera, et cetera. My point is, what I like about this guy's approach is that he's talking about mindset as a foundational piece towards success, especially for men. His target audience is men. I know some of you are women, you may like or dislike his message, but his target audience, he's talking to men. Generally, he's talking to men under the age of 40. Now, does he have men over 40 in his audience? I'm over 40 and I'm technically in his audience. So yes, but generally he's targeting men who are under 40, men who are on their rise and trying to get better at life. And I 100% agree with that, because again, if you're familiar with my work, foundation of what we do here is mindset. Foundation of my work is mindset. Now, he and I talk about mindset in slightly different ways. I say we have about a 60% overlap where we agree on, but we talk about the same things in the same way. And then about 40% of it, we may talk about the same things, but I have a different approach than what he has, which is what makes us unique. So if we did the exact same thing, then it wouldn't be need for both of us. So this mindset approach, the mental toughness approach, I'm 100% on board with. Mental toughness, I believe, is one of the biggest things that people are lacking these days. And a lot of people can't deal with challenges and the ups and downs and the inevitable things that come up in life that go against the grain of what you thought was going to happen. And this masculinity approach, which is, again, his look at masculinity and helping men understand that he is just 100% hard line on what it means to be masculine and how you need to be in control of everything and take ownership of everything 100%. I've been talking about this for years, even back when I was talking to basketball players. So these things that I'm pointing out that I'm saying I like about him are the same things that I've been saying myself. Again, I say them in different ways for different reasons, and I draw them from a different experience than his. But we are aligned in that, and those are the things that I like about what he does. And as far as I've known about this guy, this is generally what he talks about. I was not following him when he was talking about girls and webcams and all that other stuff that he was doing. I've heard him mention it and how he built a business off of it. I'm not interested in that stuff. And even from what I've heard him say about it, it's not like he was doing anything illegal. It's legal. All right, OnlyFans is legal. Are there girls out there making a whole bunch of money by being on a webcam and selling whatever you want to call that to men? Yeah, so that's exactly what he was doing. All he did was manage the situation, and he got a bunch of girls to do it, and he was in control of it, and he made money. They made money. There's no crime there. So even though I would not have followed him or gotten to his world if that's all he was talking about. Now that I know that that's what he was doing, I have no problem with it because it's a legal business. Same way I don't have a problem with a girl doing OnlyFans. There are OnlyFans girls who live in my building, and I don't have a problem with them doing what they're doing. Is legal. All right, this is just the game. So anyway, Many of the things I've heard him say when it comes to mindset, and this is the reason why, even though I focus on mindset, I still listen to other people who talk about mindset, because every once in a while I'll get an idea from one of them and say, that's a good approach. The way he said that. I like the way he said that. I like the way this person approached that. I wish I had thought of that first. And I give props to anybody who says something that is in the same lane of stuff that I talk about, but they say it in a way that I hadn't thought about. And I'm like, damn, that was good. I wish I came up with that. I get those from him often, that he'll say something. And I'm like, damn, the way he said that, the way he talked about discipline, the way he talked about confidence, the way he talked about mental toughness, even though I've been talking about it for years, that approach to it, that angle that he took is a really good angle. I hear people do that with business. I hear people do it in sales. This is the reason why these subjects that you hear me explain to you all that I talk about, I still consume sales material. I still consume entrepreneurship. I still consume mindset. I still consume discipline. I consume these things because I want to hear other people talk about it, because they have different approaches and different reasons why they say what they say that could be useful for me. So things such as, again, I'll tell you some of the things that I have aligned with this guy's message on. The focus of business needs to be bringing in the money. I heard him say that in one of his videos. Speed of execution. Stop whining like a bitch. Fight back against challenging situations in life. You don't have to feel like to show up and do your job anyway. I wrote a whole book about that called The Third Day. It's that red book you can see right there behind me. So I'm not making these up right now. I have been talking about these things for years. So these are things that young men, specifically young men, need to hear. I often hear from mothers. I get mothers sending me messages often over the years, especially when I was focused on basketball, who would say, Dre, I really appreciate the messages that you're putting out there, because my son needs to hear these things. My son needs to be told, hey, show up and do your job. My son needs to stop whining about the fact he's not getting playing time on the basketball team. And a lot of young men need to hear this stuff because, as I just said, the feminization of society, one of the reasons, especially in the community from which I come, there are a lot of absentee fathers. There are a lot of men that are not around. So there are a lot of young men who are growing up without a strong masculine figure in their lives. The good news is, in the world that we live in today, they can go to the internet and they can get a positive message from a man who can tell them things that a woman simply cannot explain to a man. There are certain things that a woman who's a mother cannot explain to a 14-year-old boy. You just can't do it. And it doesn't come across the same way coming from a female that it comes across coming from a man. This is the reason why family is man, woman, child. There's a reason why that design was made. So when people like myself and others, there are many others who are putting out a message that a young man can learn from, there's a benefit to society when that message gets out. So this is one of the defenses that this unnamed guy, whose name I'm not saying, one of the defenses he's putting out there. Like, I'm giving positive messages to young men to help them understand what it means to be a man. And I don't know if I've heard him say this, but even if he didn't say it, I'll say it for him. Because there are so many young men who don't have a strong male figure in their lives, the good news is they can go on the internet and they can get it. They can get access to that. This is a positive thing. Now, that is not to say that there aren't some challenges that people have with this guy and his message. We're going to get to that in a minute. Y'all know we get to everything. So, all right, where are we here? So the things that he is saying in these particular areas that I just brought up, things that he says, these are legitimate and valid regardless of who said them. If I said the same things on these areas, they would still be true. If you said them, they would still be true. All right, they are all true. Okay. And the things that he's saying are not necessarily brand new. What's new is the way he says them and that the message is getting through to people. And that's the reason why he got kicked off of the internet. Reason he got kicked off the internet, effectively kicked off the internet. He's back now on a couple platforms. But the reason he got kicked off is not because of what he said. It's how he was saying it and the fact that it was generating a little bit too much attention. He was just drawing too much. He was having too much influence on too many people in a way that the Matrix, let's just call it, that he likes to use, didn't like. That was a real problem. It wasn't what he said, because again, none of the things that he said are brand new. He didn't make any of that stuff up. All right, it was just the way that it was getting through, and that's why people didn't like it. Because all of us, when it comes to something like mindset, there are thousands of people who talk about mindset, but some people need to hear it a certain way from a certain person at a certain time in order for it to get through. So you can listen to me talk about mindset and it doesn't get through, and you listen to somebody else say the same thing and you get it, or vice versa. Somebody else says it, it didn't quite resonate with you. Then I say it in a slightly different way with my approach. And you're like, damn, now I get it. Now that makes sense to me. So this is the reason why it's good to have a diverse set of inputs on the same subjects, because you never know where you might get that great idea. So with all that said, if you found, no, I'm not even going to bring up those people. this is getting kicked off. So the reason why I'm on the mic explaining these things is because a lot of people aren't able to logically break these things down, and people get way too emotional breaking down things, especially things that they dislike. And I have this ability to compartmentalize a point that a person makes from the person themselves. And this is what many people generally, some of you, but many people in general don't have this ability, is compartmentalization. And what that means is separating the message from the messenger. Separating the message from the messenger. Personally, whether this guy, let's just say this guy gets a new charge tomorrow, right? And he and his brother get a new charge tomorrow, and they go to jail and they get convicted and they get 50 years and go away forever. Let's just say that happened. That does not invalidate any of the value of the messages that I have heard, read, and seen from him up to this point, or anything I may discover that I haven't heard, read, or seen yet. None of it is invalidated by the fact if that were to happen. And this is where a lot of people falter. A lot of people don't have this ability. They'll say, well, because of this negative thing that I found out about this person, even though I liked their message all the way up to this point, now I don't like anything that they've ever said, and I'm going to act like I never liked them in the first place because I found out something negative about them. That doesn't make any sense. And again, you have to be able to compartmentalize. I can separate the message from the messenger. I don't even have to like the messenger, but if the message is good, then the message is good. Now, we can't act like the message didn't have quality just because you don't like the person, or because you find out something negative about the person. So I'm trying to think of a person. There was someone I was thinking about them a second ago, but I'll come back to it in a minute. So if I think a person is a complete loser, but they make a good point, it's still a good point. And if I think a person is amazing and they say something dumb, then it's still dumb. And this is a thing that, again, men shouldn't have this problem. I have an issue when I see men having this problem. And again, when I put the article out that I wrote maybe again about 2 years ago about this guy, when I first started looking into his background and what the issue was people had with him, was that many men were saying, well, because he has these things against him, he's a bad guy and you shouldn't support him or say something positive about him. And I'm like, dude, what the hell does the things against him have to do with the quality of the message? And I even said in my article, listen, 60, 70, 80% of the things that this guy is saying, the same things that I say. He's just saying them in a different way. And he's drawing them from a different background than I am, but we're coming to the same conclusions. So if you don't want to support that message, how are you supporting my message? Why are you on my email list? Why are you reading my articles? If you don't like what he's saying, how do you like what I'm saying? We're saying the same thing. And again, I couldn't understand why a bunch of people were doing this. And that's the exact reason why this guy's message is resonating with the world, because we got a whole lot of feminized dudes who can't separate the message from the messenger. They can't separate their emotions from their logic. And this is the exact point. This is the exact point why this guy's message is valuable even to this day, even after they kicked him off all the platforms. So let's continue. The last point, not the last point, next point was about the charges. So now we know that they fell apart. But I'm going to tell you what I had even before the charges got thrown out, because the charges got thrown out probably about a month or two ago when they announced that the charges were completely thrown out. But let me tell you what I understood even while that was going on, even when it was still active charges. I said, first of all, we got to find out in court. I've been telling y'all that over and over and over again. I told you that about Jay-Z. I told you that about Puff Daddy or Diddy, whatever you want to call him. I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you that about anybody who goes to court. They must prove it. You charge somebody with something, you must prove it in court. It is not the court of public opinion. It is not how people feel about it. It does not matter that someone got a charge, whether a civil or legal charge. If you don't prove it, then that means it goes away. That's it. You have to prove it. So when they took this guy and his brother to prison or jail, whatever, they got to prove it. And did they prove it? They didn't prove it. The charges got thrown out. Period. It's over. And even if, as I just said, even if they had found him guilty and found something, then that still will be immaterial to me because of what I've already told you. The quality of the message does not go away just because this person ended up doing something bad. You're a fan of O.J. Simpson, the football player, when he played. Those of y'all who are older, if you like O.J. the football player, just because of if you think he did it, that case that he got back in the 90s, that does not invalidate what he did on the football field. He still did it. He still did that stuff on the football field. Whether how you feel about him personally has nothing to do with that. Again, the separation. And I expect men to be able to do this. If a woman doesn't do it, I get it. If a man can't do it, I have a problem with that. So again, you moralizers out there, all right, you be careful. Moralizing is a slippery slope. What does moralizing mean? Moralizing is when you wag the finger at another person, whether you know them personally or not. Usually you don't. Somebody you see on the internet. And you're talking about how they're a bad person because of things that you heard about them, whether they are factually true or not. Often that's not necessary for most people to start moralizing. The challenge with moralizing, folks, is that it's a slippery slope. Because if you're going to moralize and hold someone else, quote unquote, accountable for the things that they've done as a person, then you got to get measured by that same ruler. And in my experience, and I talk to a lot of people, most of you don't want that type of exposure. Nobody wants that type of exposure. Whatever you're going to moralize against another person for, you better not have any skeletons in your closet for that same area. It actually don't have to be that same area, because once you start moralizing against a person, well, you're going to get people curious about you. And if all of your shit was on the internet to be examined by a bunch of people who are looking to make you look bad, what would they find? Let me just let that question sit. If all of your life was available on the internet to be scoured through by a bunch of people who are trying to make you look bad, what would they find? And see, when I ask that question, that usually shuts people up. That usually makes people real quiet when you start thinking about it, because all of you who are listening to me right now, you know all the details of your life. Now, see, you only know what you hear about in everybody else's life. You know all the details of your own life. So if there was a legion of people, a mob of people who don't like you, they actively don't like you, and they want to make you look bad, what would they find? If they could look through your whole life, they could find out everything. They could talk to all your friends, all your exes, all your former bosses. They go through all your documentation, all your paperwork, everything, even people who hate you, your enemies. What would they find? And how could they make you look on the internet if they wanted to? And see, as I said, usually when I ask that question, people get quiet. And I've asked this question to live audiences and the room gets quiet because nobody has anything to say, because everybody's thinking right now, damn, what would they find? Yeah. And see, that's why you shouldn't moralize against another person, because what if they were doing that to you? Now, what would happen? All right. So if people found out those things, if they found out those things about you, let me ask you a question. Would it cancel out any of the positive things that you've done in the past? Now, if they're using the same rule that you're using, then the answer will be yes. That would mean if people could find something negative about you, that means everything positive you've done is erased because of that negative thing that they found out. That logically makes no sense. But this is the way most people talk. Oh, well, because this person did this one negative thing, all the positive stuff doesn't matter. All that gets thrown in the trash because this person's a bad person. Okay, so can we do that to you? Again, he without sin shall cast the first stone. I started with this point for a reason. Any of you who is going to do that about another person, we got to be able to do it to you. And if we can look through all that person's shit, we got to look through yours. All right, you want to do that? Y'all just saw, I don't know if y'all saw this, but this guy who worked, I believe it was ABC or NBC, George Stephanopoulos, he was getting sued. He and his company was getting sued by Donald Trump for defamation. And when you get sued for defamation, which is a civil case, you have to do a deposition. The deposition is basically, if I was to sue you, that means my lawyer. A deposition means you got to sit down with my lawyer who's coming at you. You got to sit down and answer all their questions under oath, which means you can't lie. And you got to sit there and answer all the questions. And then your lawyer gets to ask me a bunch of questions, and I can't lie because it's under oath. And you can get incarcerated for lying in the deposition. And before they even got to the deposition part, ABC decided to settle out of court, and they paid Donald Trump $15 million. That just happened yesterday. Now, I'm bringing all that up to say this, that if you could get deposed to the point that you can tell a lie, again, what you going to do? All right, you can't lie. You got to tell the truth. All right, you don't want to be in this position. So again, make sure you are, with a grain of salt, judge other people, especially when it comes to their character and their morals. Now, if you want to judge somebody's actions and the things that you can see and the things that you hear them say, fine, I do it on these lives. I'll question somebody's actions and their words and the things that I know that are factually true. but I'm not judging anybody's character because I am not qualified to judge another person's character. And I'm saying all that to say neither are you. Okay. So if you really believe that you are, then you got to do a deep dive on every person who you like, everybody you're a fan of. If you were to do a deep dive on them, nobody will come out clean. And again, let me say that statement again. He without sin shall cast the first stone. You do a deep dive on everybody, you will find out nobody's clean. All right, nobody's qualified. So what we do, generally what human beings do, is that when we like people, we tend to ignore the negative things about them and we emphasize the positive. And when we dislike a person, we ignore the positive things about them and we emphasize the negative. I'll give you an example. This is probably about 10 years ago. I had done this. This is back in my basketball days. I did this brand deal with this company called Finish Line. Y'all know the sneaker store Finish Line that you see in the mall? I don't know if they still exist, but anyway, Finish Line, after we did the brand deal, they sent me a check. I don't know why they sent me a check. They should have sent me a direct deposit. I hate when people send me checks because I got to wait for it in the mail and then I got to go cash it and deposit it. And I hate that. And sometimes the check is over a certain amount. You can't even do the mobile deposit on your phone. You have to actually take it to the bank. And I don't know why they ended up sending me a check. I was annoyed with that. But finally, I got the check in the mail. So the check was too large for me to do a mobile deposit. So I had to actually take it to a bank. And the bank that I was using at the time, I was using these these virtual banks that don't have physical locations. So the only way you can deposit that check is you got to mail the check to them and then they deposit. So they already waited for the check to come in the mail to me. Now I got to mail it again. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I figure I'll just take it to the bank that issued the check because I forget what bank it was. Like, let's say it was TD Bank. So the check was from TD Bank. So I figured, all right, I'll just go to TD Bank and I'll just cash the check. And they give you a runaround. When you try to do this, they give you the runaround. So I go to a TD Bank. I remember I was in Sunny Isles Beach, Miami. So any of you know Sunny Isles Beach. Sunny Isles is it's very heavy of people from the country of the R word that I can't say. And I walk into the bank and I could tell as soon as I walked in, there's a woman sitting there at the front and I could tell she didn't really want to be helpful. So as I go to her and I try to get the check cash, she give me some runaround about why she can't do it because you wrote this on the back and we're not allowed to do this and that and that. I figured I'm not even gonna argue with this bitch. And I figured I'll just go to another location. Maybe I'll find somebody more friendly. So I go to another location, same bank, just a different location. And when I get up to the front and this woman at the first place, she was clearly from the R word country. Sunny Isles Beach is heavily populated by people from that country. And she wasn't trying to help me. And I'm not saying that applies to everybody from that country because I've had some very good relations with some people from that country, males and females. That's a different story. So as I go to another location, right? And this was in Fort Lauderdale because I needed to go to Fort Lauderdale that day. And the guy working at the counter was a young guy. He's probably in his 20s. And he sees me walk up. And at this time, this is before I was wearing suits. This is when I'm in a t-shirt, basketball shorts, no Jordan sneakers, etc. And I look like, when I'm dressed like that, I look like an athlete. Most people judge me as an athlete. I'm 6'4", athletic, in good shape. People judge me as an athlete. So when I get up to the window, he's like, hello, how you doing? I say, hey, I just want to cash this check. I give him my forms of ID. And he looks at the check. Now he sees that the check is from Finish Line. So he knows what Finish Line is. It's a sneaker store. Now this woman at the other place, she probably has no idea who Finish Line is. So he sees this from Finish Line. He's like, oh, how you work with them? You do business with them? He was just inquisitive, just asking the question. Now, technically, he shouldn't be asking me questions about my business because I'm a customer. Why are you even looking at my check? You're just supposed to cash the check. But he asked me a question about it. And I said, yeah, well, I play basketball and I got this YouTube channel and I make basketball content. So I did a brand deal with Finish Line. And they just sent me the check and they were supposed to direct deposit it, but I got the check in the mail, et cetera. So I'm just going to cash it. So then he started asking me more questions. He's like, oh, you're on YouTube? Oh, you used to play basketball? Where you play at? Because he's a basketball fan. So I'm telling him I play overseas and where I played, et cetera, et cetera. I told him about my YouTube channel. He pulls my YouTube up on his phone. Mind you, this is a guy working at the bank. And now the reason why the woman at the other location didn't cash my check is because the first thought that I had when I got the check was I'm going to mobile deposit the check into my virtual bank. So you got to write your account number on there and then you sign it. And the woman said, because you wrote a different bank's account number on your check, we can't cash the check. Technically, she was correct. Technically, that's their policy. You ever go to a business and you're trying to get help and they say, well, our policy is, and they stonewall you and they don't help you because of their policy. So technically, she was right. So I had the same check. Again, the number is still on the back of the check. The wrong number's on the back of the check. Not the wrong number, but my other bank number's on the back of the check. This guy who pulled up my YouTube channel and saw that I'm a basketball player, he's kind of likes me because I'm a basketball player. He turns around to check and he sees a number on the back. You know what he does? Anybody want to guess what he did? I wait for somebody to guess in the comments in the comment section what this guy did. So the first woman, just to give y'all the frame, first woman at a different location said, you wrote the account number of a different bank on this check. We can't cash it. I go to a different bank, different guy. He likes me. He sees the exact same number on the back of the check. You know what he did? Yeah, he picked up a pen. He just crossed the number up. Yeah, so most of y'all got it. He picked up a pen and he said, well, we'll just take care of that right there. He just crossed it out and he cashed the check. And I walked out of there with the money. I'm telling y'all the story to help y'all understand this, that when people don't like you, they will find any reason to not help you or do something or say something negative about you. And when people do like you, with the exact same information, they will find a way to ignore it and help you and be positive about you. This is just human nature. This is just the way humans work. This is why it's always beneficial to have more positive relationships with more people. More positive relationships you have with more people, or the more people who just generally have a positive feeling about you, the more opportunities you'll have. Because again, people will look at the exact same information and come to a completely different conclusion. So what I call it, one of the concepts that I tell people is that when you are consuming other people's materials, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Meaning you don't have to agree with everything that somebody puts out. You can follow me. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. But if there are things that I say that you like, then you should take those things in, apply them, use them. And the stuff that you disagree with, fine. But you can't go around and say, well, I remember I was in this mastermind business group probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And there was this white girl named, what was her name? I think her name was Stephanie. It was Jess. Her name was Jessica. And I remember her saying this, and we were in our little cohort having a conversation. And Jessica said this. She said, and Jessica was as white as a picket fence. She's probably about late 20s age. And she said, we were talking about what businesses do we buy from, or how do we decide which business to buy stuff from? And we were just talking about different things. And one of the things Jess said was, anytime I want to buy from a business, I want to make sure that I am aligned with them as far as what they care about and their morals, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to make sure the businesses, and again, just as white as a picket fence. She said, I want to make sure this company is anti-racist. This is when anti-racism was super popular. And I remember hearing her say that, and I thought this girl is completely misguided, and she learned this bullshit at some liberal university. Unfortunately, I don't know if she's unlearned that nonsense since then, but I always remember her saying that. And I thought to myself, I don't make decisions like that ever. I never make decisions that way. I do not need to completely agree with you on everything to do business with you or to like you or to even be your friend. I don't need to agree with you on everything. We can completely disagree. I have friends who I know for a fact are hard on the left. I have friends who are hard on the right. I'm in the middle. We don't have to agree. I got friends who I remember in the 2020 election, one of my friends, he had said that his mom had called him the day of the election. And he said, this is what he said to me. He said, my mom called me just to make sure that I go vote for Joe Biden in the election. I didn't even say anything. I thought that was ridiculous, first of all, because we were both over the age of 30 and your mom's calling you, telling you to make sure who you vote for. I thought that was ridiculous. The fact that his mom even thought that was a thing that she should do. And secondly, that the way he said it was like, I guess he accepted the advice. But anyway, he's still my friend. He's still my friend, despite the fact that I thought that was ridiculous, the fact that that even happened. And he even told me that it happened. I got friends who say, we were talking about the election. I'm like, and we would just joke about it. Who are you going to vote for? He said, anybody but Trump. And that was his whole thing. Anybody but Trump. I'm like, for what reason? Like, I'm trying to just logically figure out why. He didn't have a logical reason. It's just, whoever it is, whoever is running against Trump, I'm voting for that person. So these are people who are hardcore, all day left Democrat, whatever you want to call them. Even if they have no logical reason to believe it, they're still friends of mine and we'll still be friends to this day. And if they call me and need something, I got them. So I don't have to agree with everything that a person says. So again, you eat the meat, you spit out the bones, and every person is useful in your life for what they're useful for, and what they're not useful for, don't use them for that. I got people who I'm personal friends with who I would never do business with because they don't carry themselves in such a way that I want to do business with them because I don't think they're reliable, dependable, or going to show up the way that I would show up. But I can be friends with them. We can hang out on a personal level, but we ain't doing business together. There are people who I do business with who I would never hang out with on a personal level for different reasons, almost the exact opposite reasons. And again, I can logically break these things down and compartmentalize when it comes to people in a way that I think a lot of people don't have this ability. I would love if everybody had it. That's never going to happen, but it'll be better if more people developed it. So you got to be able to separate the points from the person. Anyway, let's move on. And how many more points do I got here? 2 more points. I'll try not to go too long on these. So I remember when I put the article out about this guy, this unnamed influencer whose name I'm not saying here today. And y'all can put his name in the comments. If somebody put his name in the comments so everybody knows who I'm talking about. Some people on TikTok don't know who I'm talking about. Everybody else knows his name is in the title. I couldn't put his name in the title on TikTok. But when I put this article out, I had a couple people respond to my email and say, well, Dre, if you are going to support this guy, then I'm going to have to leave your audience. And I'm like, really, dude? And again, these are men. These are not women saying this. These are men saying this. First of all, okay, anybody who would decide that you're going to stop liking my stuff because I agree with something that you disagree with, all right, you should leave my audience. You should have never been here in the first place. And I would tell people that. I don't care if you've been following me for 10 years. All right, so if you say I'm not going to listen to you anymore because you agree with somebody who I dislike, again, what you should do when you hear that is engage with the person and find out why. I remember I was listening to the Megyn Kelly show. Y'all know Megyn Kelly? She has a very popular, she's one of the few people doing actual journalism these days. And one of the reasons she's doing journalism because she's independent. She has an independent platform. And just last week, she had this guy on her show, and this guy writes books about raising your kids. And he has several books about raising your kids. And one of the things that he said in this conversation, this is just a week ago, he said, when young men are looking around for examples of how to be a man, then they go on the internet and they find this guy whose name I'm not saying today. They find this guy, the initials AT. He said they find him. He was saying it as a negative thing. And Megyn Kelly agreed with him. She was like, yeah, they don't want to find guys like that guy. And I completely disagree with that concept, but I'm still a fan of the Megyn Kelly show. I still listen to the Megyn Kelly show. And if Megyn Kelly called me to be a guest on the show, I would gladly show up. And if I ever had a conversation with her, I would ask her about what I heard her say. But the point is, just because we may disagree on that particular point, I don't even know why, because she didn't elaborate and he was talking. She was just co-signing what he said because he was the guest on the show. That wouldn't stop me from being a fan of her work. And that's crazy that a lot of people do that. The problem is when you do that you're not going to be a fan of anybody because that means you got to find somebody who agrees with you on everything. And those people don't exist. Your own husband or wife don't agree with you on everything. So how are you going to hold anybody on the internet to that standard? It doesn't make any sense. So I remember in 2016, Trump and Clinton were the candidates. And I remember announcing this is when Snapchat was the spot, right? Snapchat was very popular back then. You remember Snapchat? They still exist. So on Snapchat, I had said, I'm going to watch the debate. And this is before I wasn't talking about current events at all, anything political at all at that point. But I was talking about mindset. I had some business people, athletes in my audience. And I said, tonight, I'm going to watch the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And some old guy, he's probably in his 60s. I knew he was a purchaser of my material because he kept sending me messages on Snapchat like, yeah, I bought your course and I signed up for this and that. I got all your books. And older guy, he's probably 60 something. And again, I knew he was a big fan and he was a buyer. He was a customer. And he sent me a message in Snapchat and said, Dre, you shouldn't talk about politics. It will be bad for your brand. And this is first of all, any of you who knows me or any of you who's getting to know me, never, ever tell me what would be good or bad for my brand, because the only person who can actually answer that is me. And I let him know in no uncertain terms that he should never give me advice on building a brand. First of all, because he didn't have one. And secondly, because my brand is whatever I decide is going to be. And he hasn't messaged me since then. And the point is that if I decide that I like something and you disagree, the first thing you should do is not get mad and say, well, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, Dre. The first thing you should do is engage and find out why. First thing you should do is engage and find out, well, Dre, what is it that you like about this thing that I hate? Or, Dre, what is this thing that you hate about this thing that I like? So you might learn something new. You might learn that maybe you had some bad information. Maybe I had some bad information. Maybe we got the same information, but I look at it this way and you look at it that way. Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Maybe now I understand your perspective. Doesn't change my mind, but it opens your mind to think about it in a different way. The challenge in our society these days is that many people want to draw this hard line. Either you got to be on this side or that side. Either you're with this or you're not with this. Either you're on that. Either you are with us or against us. And that's not always the way it works. There's some areas of life where it is that black and white, but there are many areas in which it's not. And when it comes to opinions, everybody has them, and we have them for different reasons. And we all can draw conclusions or theories from different amounts of information. Let's just call it that, because the world that we live in today, there is so much information, some of it accurate, some of it not, that it's hard to get another person to see exactly what you see, because we're all taking in different sources and we interpret the same things different ways. Like, there are different people listening to me right now. Some of you are taking this one way, some of you taking it a completely different way, even though I'm saying the exact same thing to both of you. And you can't put people in this box, other humans in a box, where they have to see things the same way that you do, because again, if that's the way that you're doing things, you're going to end up with no friends. You think of your best friends. If you really dug deep into all the things they believe and why, you would realize that you don't have as much in common with them as you thought. All right, so you don't want to take that red pill. I don't think many of you do, if this is the way that you look at things. Let me move on to my last point. So this last point about this guy, and here's the point that I think many people have a challenge with, maybe even wait for me to get to this, is this misogyny thing. All right, misogyny. All right, this guy is a misogynist. And that was ostensibly, this was the reason that this guy got kicked off of social media, was the misogyny, right? Wasn't that the thing? What's going on, Sugar? Good morning. So the misogyny was the thing. All right, this guy is just anti-female. He's negative about women. He believes that a man owns a woman and a woman is his property, and a woman should be barefoot in the kitchen making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the only time she should leave the kitchen is to do the laundry and to put the kids to bed. And that's the real challenge that many people have with this guy, whose name I'm not saying. Is that accurate? Is that the challenge that some of you have with this guy? Because we're about to get into that right now. So when I hear this guy himself, when he talks about it, or when he's been interviewed, or when his detractors talk about him, this is the main point that they bring up. So they tried to bring up the charges. That didn't work. That failed. And then the other thing was, well, this misogyny thing, just this, how he looks at, treats, or thinks about women, or what he believes about women. Soul Art New York, I see you over there with a couple comments. I'll get to them. And I believe this is what you said yesterday that I told you I would address. So based on the things that he said, talking about his webcam business that he had, that he, in some ways, you could say, exploited these women, because he had a webcam business. Y'all know what a webcam business is, right? It's like OnlyFans. So the girl gets on the camera and she smiles at the camera and she basically talks dirty to the men, or whatever they do. I've never been a purchaser of any of this stuff, but I'm giving my theory on how it pretty much works. Talks dirty to the men, shows off her body, takes clothes off, and the men give money in exchange. The men pay for this. So it's basically like a strip club, but on the internet. So they pay for this. He ran the business. So the way he explained it, and I've heard him explain it. I heard him explain this in detail. He understood that the girls were a little bit too lazy to really treat it like a business the way it needed to be. So he decided he could do the business side. They could provide the prettiness. So you be the pretty girl on camera. I'll do the business side. I'll actually type to the men. They don't know it's a man typing to them. They'll think it's you typing, and they're paying for access to the girl. But then I know how to talk to them. This is him talking. I know how to talk to the men to get them to keep giving money and stay attracted and stay attached and keep giving money, et cetera, et cetera. So he basically made a business out of it. And he would get a certain percentage of the money, and the girls would get a certain percentage of the money. All right, that's just business, ladies and gentlemen. That's business. There's nothing wrong with that. Anybody think there's something wrong with that? If there's something wrong with that, please tell me what. That's the business. All right. He basically put the business structure together. He got the girls to be the pretty part, so they were the pretty ones, and he handled the business. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just straight business. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Even if you think, some people may say, well, he financially exploited the women. All right. Some people may say that he exploited the women by having them do the work on camera while he was doing the work in the back end, and he kept a percentage of the money and they got a percentage of the money. And they say, well, he exploited them. Well, no, he didn't. If they agreed to it, you're not being exploited if you agree to the idea. If you agree to the deal, you're not being exploited. So you can't say somebody's being exploited if they agree to it and they know exactly what they're getting, and this is the position that they end up in. That's not exploitation. Exploitation is if you don't know what I'm doing and then you find out later on. So y'all remember when the rapper Lil Wayne sued the guy he used to call his daddy Birdman at Cash Money All right, exploitation is like you think you're making this much or this percentage, but then you realize there's a bunch of money that wasn't paid to you that was supposed to be. Then you can say you've been exploited. That's when you take people to court. But after all these charges and all these things, he said this many times, and anybody got a different story, let me know. Not a single female, despite all the ones he engaged with, not one has come forward and said he did anything wrong on a legal side or a financial side or a civil side. Nobody, not one. So if he was doing all these terrible things, where's the witnesses? Where's the people that say that this happened, aside from hearsay? And again, I'm not even saying whether it's right or wrong to run a webcam business. Again, it's legal. Would I do it? Probably not now. But if I had the idea back before I had a better idea, maybe. Why not? There's money to be made. There are people willing to spend. There are girls willing to do the work. And there's an opportunity there, and I know how to do it. Why not? Again, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter if I think it's right or wrong. Is it legal? Yes. Are people paying for it? Yes. Is there a whole business around it? Yes. Is there, are there a bunch of people on OnlyFans right now? There are women on OnlyFans right now making money right now from people who are paying to have engagement with them through the internet. Again, it's a strip club on the internet. That's what OnlyFans is. They took the strip club and they put it on the internet. That's what they did. And again, if you got a problem with that, then you got a problem with strip clubs, and you got a problem with strippers, and you got a problem with OnlyFans girls. All right, where is it? Again, is this a crime? No, it's not. This is just straight up business. So he was simply playing the game. And what I tell people all the time, don't complain, play the game. Don't get mad at people who are playing the game. All right, just play the game. Now, on this subject, what I want my mom or my sister or a girlfriend or wife or daughter of mine to be on OnlyFans or working the stripper pole or doing a webcam business? The answer is no, I would not. However, I have known women who are mothers, daughters, sisters, not so much wives or girlfriends, but I've known girls who were strippers. I've known girls who are on OnlyFans. I've known girls who do webcam businesses and they make their money doing it, and I ain't judging them for it. Now, are they going to become my wife? No, but I don't have a problem with the fact that they're doing what they're doing. It's just business. Business is business, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what it is. Now, these negative criminal things, again, proven in court. If you did something criminal, you got to prove it. If you can't prove it, then you can't keep saying that he did it. Again, we just saw George Stephanopoulos, ABC, had to pay Donald Trump $15 million. You keep saying that somebody did something legally and it's legally not proven, then you are defaming that person's name. And they had to pay for that. So again, moralizing annoys me. All right. You can't wag your finger at somebody else's wrongdoing unless we're going to put all your life on under a microscope the same way and all your history open to your enemies. And nobody wants to deal with that. So people who want to make you look bad can make you look bad if they want to. All right. All that said, folks, all that said, let me take questions and comments, and then we'll take questions and comments. Let me start over on YouTube. Then we'll go to, I'll see if I got anything on Rumble or X, and I'll go to Instagram. Then we'll come to TikTok. So we're talking about the unnamed influencer here today. TJ Matos, good morning. Fred said they would never find videos of me self-snitching. Well, that R word that you use there is by definition, that's a crime. So if someone self-snitched that they committed a crime, they should be in jail. So if that person's not in jail, then what you're claiming here is a non sequitur. It didn't happen. Someone said you're a simp for the guy whose name I'm not saying. He said, when Jesus said that they're about to kill women, he didn't say throw a stone. He didn't also call her ex because she did positive. I don't know exactly what you're saying there, Fred. And saying that doesn't really make any point. That guy, Yeagers, good morning to you. Mad Villain said, ultimately is a great marketing genius, at least for about a year. He owns social media. Yeah. So, I mean, exactly. So I would agree with that. You got people to know about him who don't even pay attention to the area in which he was doing his thing, which is exactly what he did. I wasn't paying attention to anybody talking about dating or girls or relationships, but it still got on my radar, which is proof that he was doing a damn good job of marketing himself. And again, whether you agree with what he was marketing is not the question, but was he doing a good job? The answer is yes. D. Aberdeen, what's going on, sir? Yi Zhao said his content also deals with self-improvement. Yeah, I got to that. Soul Art said it's not just about how to get girls, Dre, it's about how to deceive girls. Okay, let me ask you a question, Soul Art. What's the difference between getting a girl and deceiving a girl? And let's flip it around to men. So, Art, what's the difference between getting a man and deceiving a man? If a girl was to use her pictures on Instagram to get a man to pay attention to her and take her on dates and pay for her flight, a round trip flight to Vegas and back, is she deceiving the man or is she getting the man? What's the difference? Where do you draw the line between those two terms? And see, this is the language games that people play these days. And I'm not saying that you're doing it on purpose. It's probably just a natural way that most people just talk like this naturally. But what's the difference? And I don't think most people can explain the difference. The only difference is if you like a person, they're getting the girl or guy. And if you dislike the person, they're deceiving the girl or guy. What's the difference? So Art said he admitted to some of the things he was being charged with. Okay, so why is he not in jail? If he admitted to some of the things he was being charged with, that means he should be in jail. If you're charged with something, that means it's a crime. And if you admit to a crime, then that means it's an easy case for the prosecution to get you convicted. So why is he not in jail? So what you're saying there, non sequitur, not true. So Art said his delivery makes it funny, but it's not funny at all, especially not to the women who experience his toxic behavior. Well, where are they? Again, why didn't any of them testify in court against him? Where are the witnesses? Soul says, not about judging, it's about rejecting his messaging and lifestyle because younger kids try to emulate it and it's harmful to society. Nah, you sound like a school teacher now. That sounds good, but no, I had to reject that comment. It's about younger kids try to emulate it and it's harmful to society. Okay, do you have the same comment about Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B? You have the same comment about Jay-Z? You got the same comment about Lil Wayne? You got the same comment about Future or Drake? Do you have the same comment about other people, or do you tell me who else this applies to? This comment you made here. So the comment I'm reading on Instagram, Soul Art New York says, younger kids try to emulate it and it's harmful to society. So let me ask you a question. What other entertainers besides this guy whose name I'm not saying, do you reject their message because it's harmful to kids in society? Because it can't just be him. Because this stuff, there are people who've been putting harmful messages out to society for decades. So again, when did people all of a sudden become so righteous? So I agree with the masculinity and mindset part. Fine. I'm afraid many people aren't smart enough to swallow the meat and spit out the bone. Well, you would have to hold the mirror up to yourself here. So Art New York, I'm reading your comments. You are guilty of this. So let's see. So Art said, we agree on that. I like the brothers and they have some great messages. Some of the things they say about women are harmful to women. Like what? Like what? And when you say harmful to women, which women are you referring to? The relationship between men and women is already suffering. Which women are you referring to? For example, if you're a woman and you want to be carried off and swept off your feet by a white knight and you want to be married and have 5 kids and live happily ever after in a monogamous relationship, does that make other men? So let's say that's you, right? You want to be swept off your feet by a white knight and you want to get married and have a monogamous relationship for the rest of your life, and you and that man for the next 50 years, neither of you ever touches another man or a woman. But then there's a man who comes along and says, well, you know what? I don't want that. I want to have 10 different women, and I want to have kids by each one of those 10. I'm going to take care of each one of them financially, have sex with each one of them when I feel like it, and all 10 of them are okay with that. Is that a harmful message? Is that a harmful message? Yes or no? People put in the comments. Is that a harmful message? Yes or no? I'm interested to know people's perspective on this. Is that a harmful, what I just gave out there? Is that harmful? Yes or no? I'm just waiting for answers here. So if you're a woman, you want to be with one man forever for the next 50 years. And then a man comes along and says, I want to be with 10 women anytime I feel like it, individually. I'll take care of them financially or whether he does or not. But I want 10 women who are okay with it. They know that I got 9 other women and they're all right with it and I'm all right with it. Is that harmful? Is that harmful for a man to go and announce that? So I'm getting about 50-50 here. I'm getting some people say yes and some people say no. The answer is no, it's not harmful. If they agree to it, it's not illegal. It's not a crime. And people agree to it. So how is that harmful? What's harmful about it? There are women out there who don't want to be married. They want to do what they're doing, whatever they want to call themselves. They want to be on OnlyFans and they want to make their money and they want to have men whenever they want to have men. And that's the way they want to live. That's not harmful. What's the harm? Again, who's being harmed by this? Is it you're saying young people are being harmed? Any of you saying young people are being harmed? Well, they're only being harmed that they're being exposed to the message over and over again and they're being influenced by it to the point that they go try to live it out. That's the only thing that will make it harmful. Same way that My father's a musician. He listened to rap music from the time I was a child. The music is in my bones because I listened to it so much because he would play it all day, every day. But I never went out into the world and tried to live out what a rapper was rapping about because I had two parents at home and I had proper home training. So even though I was listening to the music and I enjoyed the music, I never went out and tried to live like Jay-Z or Puff Daddy or 50 Cent, even though I was listening to the music. Why? Because the influence of my parents was stronger than the influence of the music. So any of you who feels like a message is harmful to the youth, well, who's raising a kid that is taking in that message? Who's raising that child? Because the parents are the biggest influencers if they're doing their jobs. If your kid is being influenced by something strong, more strongly than they're being influenced by you as a mother or a father, then you're failing. That's not the message. You can put any kind of negative message you want all around my kids. My kids are not going to be more strongly influenced by any shit on the internet than they're going to be by me. Why? Because I'm the parent. That's my job as a parent. So anyway, let's continue. Soul Art said, their demographic is young men whose brains aren't fully developed yet. So filling their minds with those ideas is harmful. That's my only issue with them. Well, you're moralizing right now. Soul Art New York. I gotta remind you of what I've talked about already here. You're moralizing right now. Their demographic is whoever's interested in the message. Their demographic is whoever's listening. So somebody could be 50 years old listening to their message. So let's just say there's a lot of young men, all right, and their brains aren't fully developed yet. So I've heard, depending on who you ask, that a young man's brain does not fully develop till age 25 or anywhere between age 25 and age 40. So anybody who's receiving a message between the ages 25 and 40, their brain isn't developed yet. So that doesn't necessarily make you wrong because you're giving them a message. If you give a message to a 15-year-old girl, their brain's not developed either. So does that make you righteous or does that make you just as bad as them? Are you good because you're talking to a woman whose brain is not developed, or what? We got to wait till everybody's brain is developed to get them a message. That's another non sequitur here. So your messages are not holding, your points are not holding up logically here, Soul Art New York. And filling their minds with those ideas is harmful. I need a definition of this word harmful that you keep using. You keep using this term harmful. It's a very fluid term that people can use to demean anything that they don't like. So it's harmful. You could say that these apps that we're using right now are harmful, but you're still here. I mean, what's the difference? Again, this is the point that I made earlier. You said he used coercion and manipulation. Again, where's the proof? If you coerce somebody, meaning did he coerce them illegally? Did he do something that's a crime? If so, you got to prove it. Young women can't recognize coercion or manipulation until it's too late. We can't promote that to our young men. No, I gotta give you a FOH for that one at Soul Art New York. No. I gotta completely reject that. I gotta completely reject what you just said. This yellow book is called The Super You. I think it's on the way to you, Sugar. It's part of the Bulletproof Bundle. So young women can't recognize coercion or manipulation until it's too late. No. This one, I 100% reject this. This right here is the framing that a lot of women, so all due respect, a lot of women and advocates for women use as a offensive weapon against men when they're trying to make the man look bad. Oh, well, he coerced me and he manipulated me and I didn't realize it until after. So now that's why we're in court and I'm accusing this guy of assault. Bullshit. No. And men get coerced and manipulated as well. So if I go on OnlyFans and I spend $10,000 on a girl, can I say, hey, I didn't realize she was coercing and manipulating me into giving her $10,000, give me my money back? Can I do that? Would that hold up in court? Would you accept that as a logical approach? If I was to get on the internet tomorrow, if I was to get on here tomorrow and say, hey, some girl on OnlyFans got me to give her 10 grand, but I didn't realize she was manipulating me until after the money was out of my account. Is that acceptable? So no, miss me with this bullshit right here. Soul Art New York. I'm sorry. Can't go with that one. Soul said it's harmful. He has the right to live as he pleases, but you don't have to promote it. Again, who else do you hold to that same account? Who else do you hold to that same account? I'm interested to know. Give me some names. It's not wrong. It's just not responsible. I noticed you didn't answer that question. So let's go back here. He without sin shall cast the first stone. You're moralizing against a person you don't like, but I want to hear who else you moralize about. That's what I'm interested in. Traditional all day. So I like the way he speaks. I think you're talking about that guy, but I hope maybe you're talking about me too. So he was resonating with too many young men globally. Yes, exactly. And it wasn't the negativity of the message. It was the positivity of it. We have a feminized society. Our society is becoming more feminine by the day. And again, that's not a knock on women. It's that society was built by men with masculine energy. That's just a reality of life. And he was resonating with them. And it was a coordinated move by everyone else to let's cut this guy's access to all these people. It didn't really work, but they tried. So it wasn't people didn't like it. The Dems didn't like it. Maybe. We'll see. TARF 10. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, that is the topic. Shout out to Brittany, who is Brit B02, who is moderating my comments here. What am I talking about? Just say it. I can't just say it. Meggie, multi-trillionaire, because I've been directly told by the app whose comments I'm reading right now that I cannot say this name. So again, any of you who knows my work knows I have no problem talking about whoever or whatever. But if I was to say it, then y'all wouldn't have access to me because they would kick me off. I've been kicked off before. So this is not a theory. This is a reality. Someone said, only thing I had to disagree with about is a preacher. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, a preacher? I'm looking at comments on TikTok, by the way. So if you got a comment on TikTok, go ahead and post it. Michelle Linka said he is still on X. Yeah, well, he got kicked off of that too. He only came back to X when Elon bought it. So a bunch of people came back to X after Elon Musk bought X, but he was kicked off of that too. He was kicked off of everything at the same time. And the only ones I believe he's active on now are X and Rumble, because those are the only ones that are not still dominated by the left. So believe nothing you hear, half of what you see. Yeah, and I believe a quarter of what you see nowadays. Because nowadays, y'all see on Instagram nowadays, I see AI. They'll have like an AI girl, but it won't be one picture. It'll be like a whole account of an AI person. It's not even a real person, but they got a bunch of photos and they are almost realistic looking. I've seen enough AI images to know that when they're not real, but they look close enough to be real. And they're building whole businesses around these AI people. Like they're AI influencers nowadays. Did y'all know about this? So you shouldn't believe even half of what you see. You should believe like a quarter of what you see. I am Queen Ace. That's correct. 100%. Traditional said the negative could outweigh the positive. Yeah, and it's not even about it outweighing. It's just about, if I could tell you one positive thing, if I read a book that's 300 pages long and there's 2 pages of value in there, I'm happy for the 2 pages. Even though the rest of the book I thought was trash, 98% of it is trash. The 2% that I get from that book, I'm going to find a way to apply it. So it's not even about it. It's not about negative versus positive. It's just about, can I get an overall anything valuable out of this experience? Edwin, good morning. Coco King from VA. Exactly. Nobody's squeaky clean. You remember Finish Line? Do they still exist? I don't know if they still exist. Tarf said bankers are trained to know your clients. Well, I wasn't a client. That's the thing. I was just a random customer just coming in with a check. So that was the whole point. So Teresa said, get more glue with honey. Yeah, but I came in the exact same way to both banks. The thing is one person wanted to help me, one person didn't, for different reasons. That was the whole point. Let's see. Stephen Lusko said, you make tons of sense. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the aim. Lester said, voting against mediocrity isn't hard. What are you referring to? Ital Coley said, thank goodness we can all have this freedom. What freedom are you talking about? Coco said, too many men are like women, emotional, irrational. And I believe too many men are becoming. I think this is a growing epidemic right now. Too many men are starting to behave like women. And I think there are many aspects of society that wants this to happen. And when this guy, guy whose name I'm not saying here today, AT, when he started coming out and starting to reverse that trend because he was so influential and popular, because there are other men who talk about this stuff too. They just weren't as popular as him. When he started to reverse that trend, they said, well, we can't let this guy do it because he's going to undo all the stuff that we're trying to do. And that's why they shut him down. That's just my theory. Again, I wasn't in the room when they had these conversations, but this was a coordinated thing because they all kicked him off at the same time. And these apps otherwise don't work together on any other level aside from that. They did it to Trump and they did it to him. I've never seen these apps work together on any other subject besides those 2 instances. So any of you who thought social media is just one big company, no, social media is a bunch of different companies. They are not friends. They are competitors, actually, because the more time I spend on TikTok, the less time I spend on Instagram. They're competitors. The only time they work together is when they want. Balance is key. Over masculinity is unbalanced, I feel personally. It's how Chloe, society has done a good job of getting you to look at it that way. But if you really think about it, society was built by masculinity. Every building that you're in, the phone that you're looking at me on right now, the table that you're sitting at, all these things were built by masculinity. And before the world became as safe as it was, people who were building tall buildings and skyscrapers, these people were losing their lives because the safety precautions were not nearly as advanced as they are today. Those are men risking their lives. And I don't know what country you're in, but in the United States of America, the reason why we have such a safe society is because we have a strong military, which is mostly men between the ages of, let's say, 17 and 30, who are willing to put their lives on the line to protect our freedoms. That's all masculinity. That is not women. That's men. And we need more men who are willing and able to say that out loud, and more women who are willing to accept it. And what we're having here today is actually we're losing both. Fewer men willing to say that and able to say it, and fewer women willing to accept it. That's one of the problems with society. Women are not going to go build the infrastructure that men have built. Women aren't going to do that. Women are not going to be on the front lines if we get invaded by a foreign enemy. That's not going to happen. So this is a masculine society, and the strength of our society is in the masculinity on the front lines that is building and defending the things that we built. And there's nothing wrong. And a woman accepting that does not mean the woman is weak. It just means the woman understands the reality of the situation. And for a man to point that out doesn't mean that he is toxic. It just means that he understands what the hell is happening. And it's crazy to me that a lot of people just can't accept this. Actually, it's not crazy to me. A lot of people are choosing not to because you're being taught. I'm not saying any of you individually, but you're being taught over and over again that this is somehow a negative thing, that patriarchy is bad and we need matriarchy and we got to get the men out of there and get the women in there. And this is one of the reasons why Trump winning was actually a good thing for masculinity, because it was a kind of a counterpunch to the way society had been moving and letting everybody know, not only in America, but the whole world, that masculinity is not just going to lay down and take this. That is going to fight back. And as much as it was about a bunch of other things, Trump versus Kamala, there was an undertone of man versus woman. Was that part of it? Yes, it was. And I believe Trump winning was a reflection of people are, both men and women are okay and accept the reality that we have a stronger society with men running things in general. I'm not saying a woman can't be in charge or can't start her own business or be a CEO. What I'm saying is what I just said. The infrastructure of society in every country in the world was built by men. That is not up for debate at all. Any two countries go to war, who's on the front lines? It ain't a bunch of women, it's a bunch of men. There are men risking their lives for this country and whatever country you live in and whatever country we fight. Those are men fighting against men. They're the ones who will put their lives on the line when there's danger, not a woman. Women are not doing that, regardless of what you see in some fake ass movie. All right. That shit doesn't happen in real life. Comrade said, is Walmart a good brand? Yes, it is, because we all know who they are. A brand is just about occupying space in people's minds. I don't shop at Walmart, but I know who they are. I know where to find one if I wanted to. And I know that they are all about selling low price goods. So that makes them a good brand. Just those three things. I know who they are. I know what they're about. And I know what they bring to the table. Whether I want it or not is a different question. Kevin said, most of life is not that way. I mean, people need to grow up. They're acting like little children. Well, I don't know what part you're referring to, but yes, generally, yes. Someone said Target hit by big tech. Yeah, it's bigger than big tech. I think that this was governmental level. I think this is just my theory. Tarf said a person who dislikes, despises, or is strongly prejudiced against women. Yes, that's the definition of misogynist. The challenge with that, Tarf 10, is that those words are all very subjective. So if I say men built society, not women, does that make me a misogynist? There are some women who would say I'm misogynist just for saying that out loud, believe it or not. Or if I say some women are hoes, which is true, there are some women who say I'm misogynist just for pointing that out. Or if I say, hey, I don't have a problem with OnlyFans girls or strippers, because some of them are my neighbors right here in this building. But at the same time, I don't want my girlfriend, wife, mom, daughter, or sister to be one of them. Some people say I'm misogynist just for saying that. So these are very subjective terms. Even though the definition is right, the problem with many definitions is that they have these subjective words in them. So that leads to a debate. So the debate over what's misogynist and what's not will always go on because the definition itself is extremely subjective. Shuggy said, you had the same idea? When you want to get a bunch of girls working for you, you should do it. There's a whole lot of money in this industry right now. A lot of money. So if you can get the organization right, you should send me a message anyway. Actually, I think you sent me an email yesterday, and I wrote you back. So sounds like a legitimate business. It is a legitimate business. Again, y'all know what a strip club is, right? Y'all know what OnlyFans is, right? There's a whole bunch of money on that. There's a whole bunch of money in that. Dylan said, but they signed the agreement. Yeah, I don't even know if it was a signature, but they all went along with it. And again, none of them has come forward and said anything bad happened. And I've seen videos of these two guys who I'm talking about here today. I'm not saying their names. I've seen videos of them with a bunch of girls. And I've seen the other brother who's I'm not talking about directly. He said, look, I want to make sure all y'all understand that any of you, if you ever want to leave, you can leave. We'll pay for your flight and send you back home. But this is what we're doing right now. Everybody good. And everybody was cool. And look, everybody was having a good time. So again, if he was doing these terrible things, they tried to take him to court for it. They tried and it didn't work. So again, what is this? What are we talking about here? Marcus said the men aren't agreeing to talk to a man. Yeah, but that's not what they're paying for. What they're paying for is the access to the woman. What they're paying for ostensibly is the access to a woman. And also, Marcus, you got to keep in mind, have you ever talked to a woman on the internet? Have you ever exchanged DMs with a female? If so, how you know it was a woman? How you know the woman was doing the typing? You don't know. See, that's the thing. All he did was just tell you what he did. He just explained the business, and which people should be thankful for because you could take the ideas of what he explained and use it yourself. But if you ever exchange DMs with a woman on social media, I've exchanged plenty of DMs with plenty of women on social media. How do I know I was actually talking to a woman? How do I know I wasn't a man typing in place of the woman? You don't know. So, yeah, it sounds good what you're saying here, but it logically does not connect. It doesn't make sense. Coco said they agreed to it and got paid. Exactly. That's the business. User said that can be determined if both sides clearly communicate what the terms of the agreement are. Well, again, if he did something wrong, then you had to prove he did something wrong. And it doesn't have to be determined because it already happened and is over. So there's nothing to determine because there's nobody to judge. The only person who can judge is a jury. And a jury can only judge you if you get taken to court. And he already took him to court and they couldn't get the case through because it got thrown out because there was not enough evidence. So there's nothing to be determined. Tarp said there's more to the ABC story. All right, fine. Well, one thing we know for sure, thank you, Monica, for the heart. One thing we know for sure is that they settled out of court because they didn't want to go through that deposition. That's what I believe, that they didn't want to depose because to depose, ABC would have had to put all their cards on the table. It would have made them look bad and it would have hurt their credibility. On top of the fact that Trump is about to be the president again, I think they said, let's just make this go away because we're going to actually need access to this guy. Had Trump lost, it'd be a different story. But we're going to need access to this guy for the next 4 years. Let's just pay this guy off and let it go. Marcus said, if moralizing annoys you, are you immoral? Yes, I'm immoral. Everybody's immoral. It's a good question, Marcus. Yes, everybody is immoral. There is no person on here who is 100% moral. So when I say immoral, I mean anything less than 100%. Everybody. There's no one here who is completely clean. And no one here wants all your shit put on the front pages of the internet for your enemies to use against you. Nobody. Marcus said the line is a dude pretending to be the girls in the videos. No, he's typing for the girl. He's not pretending to be the girl. The girl was in the video. He's just typing in exchange for them to keep the conversation going because he was better at conversing than the girl was. And again, have you ever exchanged a DM with a girl on the internet? How do you know it was a girl? So Whispering Warlock said men are too insecure and emotional to have more than one wife. Well, maybe the men who you know, not all men. There are men out there who have, and I don't mean wife, not a wife, but just more than one woman in their lives. And the other women know that he has other women and they're okay with it. There are plenty of men who live like that. And there are women who live like that and they're completely okay with the deal. So yes, there are men who couldn't do that, but there are a bunch of men who can do it. And they are actively doing it right now. So Tim the Patriot said the powers that be cannot have him spreading masculinity because yes, exactly. There's a threat to society. Correct. Lucky D.L. Wilson said, not if all people agree. Yes, exactly. And some of you say harmful. Well, how? Harmful is another subjective term. It's a tricky term that people can throw around and emotionalize the subject. Indiana Homegirl says, I think it's harmful, but not illegal. It's harmful to the children and the women involved. Well, maybe with the children, the children is a tricky one. And I'll give you the answer to the children one in a second. To the women is not harmful if the women agree to it. Indiana Homegirls. How can it be harmful? How can something be harmful to a woman if a woman says, I know the deal and I'm going along with it? Now, she may later on decide that she regrets it and says, well, I probably shouldn't have done that. But in the moment when she says yes, then, hey, that's what it is. And again, harmful is a subjective term that people often use to emotionalize a subject. And it's a great tactic. Now, I'm not even saying you, because a bunch of people have been throwing this word around in the comments here today. It's a great tactic to use to make somebody look bad. And it's often used by women trying to make a man look bad. And case in point here today, I've seen it multiple times. You heard me read these comments. And when it comes to the children, unless something's being done illegally, Indiana Homegirls, my response to that is the parents make the ultimate decision as to what's harmful or good for their own kids. Can't tell somebody else how to raise their kids, even if you disagree. It's a very dangerous game to tell somebody else what to do with their kids. I would not get involved in that game at all. And I wouldn't want anybody getting involved in that game with me. So same thing I would tell everybody else about me and my kids. Same thing I would tell myself about somebody else's kids. Now, if you're doing something illegal with your kids, then I would say something. But if you're just raising them in a way that's different from what I would do, I would say that's crazy. I would say that's funny. I would say I wouldn't do that, but I can't go to you and be like, yo, don't do that. Who am I? You're the parent. You make the ultimate decision. Whispering Warlock says, you can't give all your energy to 10 people. You'd be disrespecting someone at some point. According to who? Who's the judge? If all 10 women are okay with you having 9 other women, who's the judge as to who's being disrespected? You? If you're not the man or one of the 10 women, then why does it matter what you think? I'm not saying it as a diss to you, but I'm logically asking that question. Why does it matter what you think? You don't have a say in the situation. Tommy says, like a vegan feeling that a meat eater is wrong to eat meat. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Lucky DL, preach. Thank you. Lucky said, do your job at home as parents. And yes, I do have kids. Yes. So each parent gets to decide what they want to do with their kids, as long as it's legal. Now, if you're abusing your kids on a level that goes past legality, then that's a different conversation. But if you want your kids, for example, where was I at the other day? I can't remember what I was doing, but I saw somebody, they had it was like I can't remember what it was, but somebody was talking about kids having an app on the phone or an iPad at like 5 years old. All right, my kids will not have iPads at 5 years old. They're not getting a phone till they're like going to college, like 18, if they even go to college. But I can't tell another parent, if I go to the mall and I see somebody has 2 kids sitting on the bench at the mall and they both got iPads, I'm not going to walk up to the mom and the dad and say, hey, your kids shouldn't have iPads. Right? That ain't my fucking business. It's not a crime for their kids to have iPads. I'm not going to do it, but it's not my position to judge somebody else's kids. So someone said it's 25, but go on. Well, some people say 25. I heard other people say 40. It depends on what type of development we're talking. The age that a male's brain develops. There's different levels of development. Miss Bray said the children are the people wanting more than one. Women and children are the ones getting hurt. Again, according to who? According to who? If it's not your kids, it's not really your say. And it doesn't really matter what you think. Generally, it doesn't really matter. Now, though I generally agree that man, woman, child should be the household. The biological mom, the biological dad, and the kids of those 2 parents, I agree that that's the way it should be. If I could set up every household to be like that, if everybody wanted to go with what I think, that's the way it would be. However, we know that there are households that are not like that. And if that's what the parents decide to do. Now, often when you have they would call a broken home, the man, woman, child are not all in the same house. Usually that wasn't the plan, but sometimes that is the plan. Again, this guy we're talking about here today, the way he described it, that was the plan. I want to have a bunch of kids with a bunch of different women, and they're not all going to live with me. The mom will be there with them. They will know who I am. They'll come around, but they're not always in the house with me. It sounds, the way he described it was that he did it on purpose. If that's the way he wants to raise his kids, that ain't my business. Again, now, if he asked me, I would tell him what I just told you. But if it's their kids, you can't tell somebody else what to do with their kids. That's just what it is, folks. Even if you disagree, you can disagree, but if they don't ask you, you must be very careful with offering unsolicited advice to people, especially about things as personal as their children. Again, I would recommend against this. I would recommend against it. So there was a comment there by Brittany that I just missed. Where was it? Oh, there it is. Candace Owens did a good job investigating the evidence on this case. Yeah, she interviewed that guy. She interviewed the guy whose name I'm not saying here today. Let's say Digital said in a New York court that may stand. What are you talking about? What are you referring to? Someone said, do I think Barron Trump should have played basketball? I don't know anything about Barron Trump. I know he's generally looks like he's pretty tall, but if he's not interested, then no, he should not play basketball. If you're not interested in basketball, you shouldn't play basketball. I don't care how tall you are. Eric 764 said, good talk today. Thank you. Tarp said, check was drawn from the bank because you were not a client. He was trying to understand. Yeah, I get that. And I think I alluded to that in the story. Kevin said, nothing more embarrassing than men acting like they're victims of sympathy. Well, in some cases it works. So I understand the hustle. I've talked about this many times. Someone said TikTok and IG. No, TikTok is not owned by Meta. That's not true. TikTok is not owned by the same company as Instagram. Because if it was, then explain to me how this live that I'm doing right now, according to TikTok right now, overall, this live has been viewed by 5,500 people total in the time that I've been streaming. My Instagram stream right now has 4 people on it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if they're owned by the same company, explain to me the difference in these numbers. I get way more people watching me on TikTok than watching me on Instagram, but I still mess with y'all on Instagram. That's why I still do Instagram. But no, they are not owned by the same company. I wish they were. I wish whoever owns TikTok will buy Instagram, because then I have a lot more people watching my lives. So, yeah. So F your feelings. Kami said the rollover society, you got to take out the masculine men. That's correct. Exactly. Or you got to take the masculinity out of the men. That's what they're trying to do. So they're not going to kill the men. They're just going to take the masculinity out. Chad said, I used to watch this guy's basketball videos and now he's talking politics. I'm not really talking about politics today. I'm talking about a guy who used to be an athlete, as a matter of fact, who's an influencer on the internet. But Chad, glad to see you. So Wanda said, that's right. That's wisdom. Thank you. Monica said, that boy's going to be a businessman like his father. Yes, he is. If he does anything, he's going to understand business. I don't even care if he plays sports, but he's going to understand business. Jamie said, I struggle as a grandparent. Their way is not my way. Yeah, my mom tells me that sometimes. Not about me, but I have a sister. She has more kids than me. She had kids earlier, and my mom was like, yeah, sometimes I gotta fall back. Can't tell my daughter how to raise her kids. They're her kids. That's what it is. Kevin said, that's shocking, the number of lives between Instagram and TikTok. Yeah, Instagram, for whatever reason, I don't think Instagram is big on live streaming, period, but maybe it's just me. It might just be what I talk about. But TikTok loves these lives that I've been doing. That's the reason why. And YouTube is lukewarm on these lives. If I keep doing it, YouTube will build up slowly. That's my experience with YouTube, that you got to kind of build it up slowly, depending on what you're talking about. TikTok, when I started doing these lives, TikTok started picking up pretty quickly. So I wish TikTok would own all of these platforms based on the numbers that I get on my lives. But TikTok does way more than all these other platforms. I'm on 7 platforms. I get more people watching my TikTok live than all the other 6 platforms put together every day. Someone said that I talk about the sale of TikTok. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with that. I think it's better that Trump won, I think, but we'll see. Sean P said, I saw your live yesterday for the first time and subbed. Well, I appreciate you, sir. Kevin said, you know what I think is great about you? You're very direct and concise. Well, thank you, Kevin. That's what most of our coaching members say. We ask them, what's the best thing that you get from what we do? They say, Dre, you're direct, you're concise, you don't sugarcoat, you get to the point, you're no BS, no fluff. That's what all of our coaching clients say, people who take my courses, people who listen to my shows. So let me tell y'all all where else you can get my material. I have a show called Work on Your Game, comes out every single day. You can find it on Apple and Spotify. Let me find what do y'all usually listen to, Spotify or Apple? I think Spotify is more popular than Apple, I think. So my show is called Work on Your Game. Let me show you what it looks like. So it looks like, where's the image at? Oops. How do I stop that? Where's the share button at? Spotify and move things around here. All right, here it goes. It says now you can share to TikTok. So speaking of TikTok, so my show is called Work on Your Game. You can find it on Spotify or Apple. It's just called Work on Your Game. I'm just showing y'all this right here. This is my daily show. Some of y'all call this a podcast. It's called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day. It's about 20 to 30 minutes per episode. So it's not an hour plus like these live streams. 20, 30 minutes per episode. On there is where I talk about more evergreen things like business, personal development, personal growth, mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, discipline, mental toughness. If you're into that kind of personal and professional development stuff, just tune into my show. It's on Spotify and Apple. Comes out every day. You can also find the episodes on YouTube. It's also on YouTube if you want to see the video. But on the video, I'm just sitting here talking like this. So you don't have to look at me. You can just listen to it. So you can find it on Apple or Spotify. Those of you who are on the go, you want to listen to something while you're working out or driving or at work, doing the dishes, all of that. That's my show. Also, what else? Work on Your Game University. That's where I do all of my coaching. If you would like to have me as your coach, if you want to have me come speak to your sales team or do some consulting or marketing work with or for you, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can find out more about that. My email address is in my YouTube channel. Make sure you follow me on YouTube because all of these lives, after they're done, the replay is on YouTube. So if you only caught half of this live or you missed yesterday, or I tell you I did a live 3 weeks ago and you didn't see it, go to YouTube. It's on there. I have a playlist called, what's it called? Politics, current events, and social issues. That's where I put all the lives because most of the time that's what I'm talking about, current events. So go to my YouTube. You can find that. And also you can find my evergreen stuff. I got 13,000 videos last time I checked on YouTube. So I've been in this game for a long time. So those of you who didn't know, Rumble I am on as well, but my Rumble audience is not that big yet. So someone said, what do I think of that lady that didn't? I don't know about that, Nicole. I don't know what that is. What's the topic tomorrow? I think I'm going to talk about the school violence. So the mass S word that keeps happening in schools. I think I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. That's the tentative topic. Now, I'm usually talking about current events, everybody. So if a current event happens today that I don't know about right now, that might become the topic tomorrow. So as of now, tomorrow, I think I'm going to talk about the mass S words. I got to be careful what terms I use here. I want to talk about the mass S words that keep happening at schools, or it seems like they keep happening at schools. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, probably. As of now, that's the topic. So I'm going to explain that and I'm going to talk about it from a different angle than probably what most of you might be thinking. So you should have a pretty good feel for my approach now that I'm not going to talk about things in the normal way that everybody else talks about them, because if that's all I was doing, then there'd be no need for me to do it because I wouldn't be adding anything to the conversation. So that's the topic for tomorrow. We're going to talk about the mass violence happening at schools in terms of people losing their lives. Because there was just one that happened yesterday, as a matter of fact. I think it was in Wisconsin. Did y'all hear about that? There's one in Wisconsin at a Christian-based school that it was a girl who did the shooting. I think I can say that word. So it was a girl who did the shooting. And I believe it was 3 people, including the shooter, who passed away. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And those are not, y'all can look that up and find out more about that story. But I'm going to discuss that tomorrow from, again, a unique angle, as usual. That's what I do. And I told y'all everything else I need to know. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is @DreBaldwin. My YouTube is, just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. The links to my Instagram and YouTube are both in my TikTok profile. Those of y'all on Instagram, make sure you follow me on TikTok and YouTube. Those of y'all on YouTube, keep following me on YouTube. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com so y'all can work with me directly and learn more about what we're doing. What else do we have over here? Shout out to Brittany, who was moderating the comments. I don't know if she's still in here, but thank you for Brittany for keeping things moderated. Thank you, Kimberly Petit. I'm glad you got value out of this. Any of you have any other questions or comments, you can send me a DM and my assistant will see the DM, or I will see the DM and we'll get back to you. So Art, appreciate the commentary. Hopefully you got context here about how I feel about this guy. Over on YouTube, Darnisha said, you're sick of AI. Darnisha, you better get some medicine for that because it's about to get worse. If you're sick of AI, you're about to have I don't even know what we call it. You're going to have a disease because AI is only getting bigger and more expensive. It's not going away. O-Dog said, it's not manly to opine on matters you have limited knowledge of. I have no opinion on AT because I don't watch his content. Just enough hearsay isn't manly. I agree with you. I've consumed a lot of his content, so I have a pretty good feel for his approach. That's why I'm talking about it. Matt Villainy said, do you have content on how to be a better public speaker? Yes, I do. It's on YouTube. Matt Villain, just look it up. Just look up my name, look up public speaking. I got probably 10 to 20 videos about public speaking on YouTube right now. So just look it up, you'll see it. And again, any of you want to hear me talk about any other subject that I tell you I've already spoken about, all you got to do is go to YouTube, type in my name, Dre Baldwin. You can see it up in the top corner up there, Dre Baldwin, and then type in the subject and you'll see the videos. I probably have multiple videos on every subject. If there's anything that I haven't talked about and you can't find it, just come in the comments next time I'm live and say, Dre, have you ever talked about XYZ? And I'll tell you whether I have or I haven't, or if I will or I won't. Everybody got it? All right, I got to go to the bathroom. Thank you, Stacey D. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody here. I will see all you all tomorrow. Work on your game. Be out of here.